The camera light blinked red as Dr. Kira Nakamura adjusted her microscope, completely oblivious to the massive alien scout ship materializing in Earth's orbit. Her latest livestream was about to go viral in ways she could never have anticipated. Today, we're exploring the most lethal biological systems on our planet. Kira began, her voice calm and clinical. Her lab at the Global Infectious Disease Research Center was a marvel of modern scientific design. Gleaming white surfaces, holographic displays, and an array of containment units that could house the most dangerous pathogens known to humanity. As she spoke, her hands moved with practiced precision, manipulating samples of some of the world's most deadly viruses. A holographic display behind her showcased a rotating model of the Marburg virus, its complex structure looking like an alien artifact of destruction. Most people don't realize, Kira continued, completely unaware of the alien ship now scanning Earth's communication frequencies, that humans are walking biological weapons. Our immune systems are incredibly complex, our ability to adapt is unparalleled, and we carry dormant biological systems that could potentially devastate entire ecosystems. The Vornak scout ship's communication officer, a six-limbed creature with prismatic skin, listened with growing horror. The transmission was being simultaneously translated, interpreted, and analyzed by the ship's most advanced sinolinguistic systems. Kira picked up a sealed containment unit, holding it up to the camera. Take the smallpox virus, for example. Humanity once faced total destruction from this pathogen. But instead of being wiped out, we developed a vaccine that completely eradicated the virus from natural occurrence. We didn't just survive. We conquered a microscopic enemy that had killed millions. On the scout ship, Commander Zark 9, a bioengineered warrior whose genetic lineage stretched back thousands of planetary cycles, felt something approaching fear for the first time. The human female was discussing biological warfare with the same casual detachment one might use to describe a breakfast recipe. Our bodies are constantly at war, Kira explained, her passion for microbiology evident. We host billions of bacteria, some beneficial, some potentially lethal. Our skin alone is a battlefield, with microorganisms constantly competing for resources. Humans don't just exist in an ecosystem. We are an ecosystem. The scout ship's sensors began collecting every bit of data they could. Communication arrays focused on the transmission, breaking down each word, each gesture, each scientific explanation. Unbeknownst to Kira, her casual live stream was about to become humanity's first line of defense. The Vornak would spend weeks analyzing this single transmission, trying to understand the species they were about to encounter. What makes humans truly terrifying? Kira said, her final statement capturing the attention of both her online audience and the alien observers, is our ability to understand, adapt to, and ultimately control biological systems that would destroy most other life forms. As she finished her transmission, a notification popped up on her screen. Viral views, 2.7 million and climbing. Little did she know that her audience now included the first wave of an alien invasion force, who were rapidly reassessing their conquest plans. Commander Zark 9 turned to his communication officer, his bioengineered muscles tensing. "Delay the invasion protocol," he commanded. "We need to study this transmission further." In that moment, without firing a single weapon or launching a single assault, Dr. Kira Nakamura had become humanity's first line of defense. A virologist, a science communicator, had just demonstrated why the Vornak should be afraid, very afraid, of the planet they were about to attack. The scout ship hung in orbit, its massive hull reflecting the sunlight, a silent predator suddenly uncertain of its prey. Humanity's first message had been sent, and it was more terrifying than any weapon could ever be. ## Part 2 continued in next response due to length constraints. Major Elena Rodriguez stood in the Terran Defense Command's primary war room, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that tracked the incoming Vornak invasion fleet. The room buzzed with a controlled chaos. Hundreds of specialists working in perfect synchronization, each monitoring a different aspect of the impending conflict. Ecosystem warfare protocol, she muttered, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of computers and tactical displays. Her second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Chen, looked up from his console. "Ma'am, that's not standard military doctrine. The Joint Chiefs will never approve a complete planetary transformation." Elena's lips curled into a dangerous smile. She had spent her entire career studying xenobiology, ecological warfare, and adaptive environmental strategies. The Vornak thought they were coming to conquer a planet. They had no idea they were about to fight an entire living ecosystem. "Watch," she said. With a series of precise keystrokes, Elena activated a network of terraforming drones that had been secretly positioned across Earth's most strategic regions. These weren't typical military hardware. They were advanced ecological manipulation units developed by a consortium of climate scientists, military strategists, and environmental engineers. The first transformation began in the Sahara Desert. Massive machines emerged from hidden underground facilities, their complex mechanisms unfurling like mechanical flowers. They began pumping synthesized water into the sand, activating dormant seed banks, and genetically modified plant species designed to thrive in extreme conditions. Within hours, the desert started to change. Not into a traditional green landscape, but into something entirely alien and deadly. Carnivorous plants evolved from desert-adapted species began to take root. These weren't your typical Venus flytraps. These were engineered killing machines that could detect and consume biomass with terrifying efficiency. In the Amazon rainforest, another set of drones activated. They didn't just protect the existing ecosystem, they weaponized it. Vines developed neurotoxin-laden thorns. Trees grew communication networks that could send chemical warning signals capable of paralyzing large organisms. The entire forest became a living, breathing defensive system. Lieutenant Chen watched in stunned amazement. How is this possible? Humanity's greatest weapon has always been adaptation, Elena explained. We don't just survive in environments. We transform them. The Vornak are coming with a standard invasion protocol. We're going to show them that Earth is not a planet to be conquered. It's a living predator. Satellite imagery began showing the transformations. Deserts became toxic marshlands. Forests turned into sentient defensive networks. Mountain ranges were subtly reshaped to create natural choke points and defensive positions. The Terran Defense Command had spent decades preparing for this moment. Every ecosystem was now a weapon. Every landscape was a potential trap. In the Arctic, machines began releasing specially engineered microorganisms that could rapidly alter ice composition. They could turn solid ice into treacherous, unpredictable terrain that could swallow entire invasion forces. The permafrost became a dynamic, living defense mechanism. Elena pulled up a global map showing the ongoing transformations. "We're not just defending," she told her team. "We're hunting." Each transformation was calculated, precise, and designed to be unpredictable. The Vornak would find no easy landing zones, no simple invasion routes. Every square kilometer of Earth was being turned into a complex, living weapon system. "Prepare the quantum communication network," Elena commanded. "I want every transformation mapped and synchronized. Our planet is about to become the most dangerous hunting ground in the galaxy." Lieutenant Chen looked at her, a mixture of fear and admiration in his eyes. "They have no idea what's coming." "Exactly," Elena said, her voice cold and determined. "Welcome to Terra, where the planet itself is the ultimate predator." As the terraforming drones continued their work, Earth began to change, not into a defensive position, but into a living, breathing hunting ground that would make the Vornak invasion force question everything they knew about planetary conquest. Private Jack Chen sat in the Vornak detention center, his posture relaxed despite being surrounded by bioengineered warriors twice his size. The interrogation had been going on for hours, but Jack seemed more amused than concerned. "Let me get this straight. The lead Vornak interrogator, a massive creature with iridescent exoskeleton plates and multiple sensory appendages, leaned forward. "You expect us to believe that humans can photosynthesize?" Jack maintained a perfectly straight face. "Of course. It's why we have such diverse skin tones. Each pigmentation is actually an advanced photosynthetic adaptation." He gestured to his own skin. "Mine is particularly efficient in converting solar radiation into cellular energy." The translation matrix hummed, converting his words with perfect linguistic precision. The Vornak interrogators exchanged confused glances. Their xenobiological databases had no reference for such a claim. "Elaborate," demanded Zartok, the chief interrogator. And Jack did, with scientifically sounding terminology, intricate hand gestures, and an absolutely convincing demeanor. He spun an increasingly complex narrative about human photosynthetic capabilities. He described imaginary cellular structures, quoted non-existent research papers, and provided detailed scientific explanations that sounded just credible enough to create doubt. What the Vornak didn't know was that Jack Chen had a master's degree in comparative linguistics and was a certified expert in psychological manipulation. Every word was carefully constructed to introduce maximum confusion. "Our ability to photosynthesize is why humans can survive in such diverse environments," Jack continued. "Antarctic research stations, desert expeditions, deep-sea missions, we've adapted cellular mechanisms that allow us to generate energy directly from environmental sources." The interrogation room grew tenser with each passing moment. The Vornak's advanced sensory equipment couldn't definitively prove or disprove his claims. Their entire understanding of biological systems was being systematically dismantled by a single human prisoner. Zartok's communication implants began to overheat from the computational effort of processing Jack's claims, cross-referencing, analyzing, attempting to find inconsistencies. Nothing about the human story seemed completely impossible. Meanwhile, in a completely different detention block, other captured humans were conducting similar psychological operations. A marine biologist was convincing her captors that humans could breathe underwater through specialized lung modifications. An atmospheric scientist was explaining how humans could survive in vacuum through quantum cellular stabilization. Each story was a weapon. Each explanation was a psychological assault. Back in Jack's interrogation, Zartok finally broke. "Enough," he bellowed, his multiple appendages trembling. "What is the truth?" Jack smiled. A simple, devastating human smile that contained more psychological complexity than the Vornak could comprehend. "The truth," he said. "Humans are whatever we need to be. Adaptable. Unpredictable. Survivors." Within days, the Vornak command structure began to fracture. Their perfect invasion plan was being dismantled not through military might, but through pure psychological warfare. Humans weren't just fighting. They were playing an entirely different game of conflict. Intelligence reports became increasingly bizarre. Rumors spread through the Vornak fleet about humans with impossible biological capabilities. Doubt became their most potent weapon. Jack Chen was transferred between detention centers, leaving a trail of confused and demoralized alien interrogators. He had single-handedly introduced a virus far more dangerous than any biological agent, a virus of uncertainty. The invasion had not even truly begun, and already the Vornak were questioning everything they knew about warfare, biology, and the species they had come to conquer. Dr. Aisha Mbik's fingers moved like liquid lightning across 12 holographic interfaces, her quantum computing laboratory a symphony of controlled chaos. Outside the reinforced windows of the Global Technological Defense Center, the first Vornak invasion ships began to pierce Earth's atmosphere. "Trojan Predator is ready," she muttered, more to herself than to her team of elite programmers and quantum engineers. The Trojan Predator wasn't just a computer virus. It was a quantum algorithm designed to do something previously thought impossible: completely rewrite alien technological systems using nothing more than pure computational logic. Aisha had spent her entire career studying alien communication intercepts. developing algorithms that could predict and manipulate complex technological systems. The Vornak believed their quantum encryption was unbreakable. She was about to prove them catastrophically wrong. "Initiation sequence," she commanded. The first wave of the algorithm slipped through the Vornak communication networks like a ghost. It didn't attack, it listened, learned, adapted. Each line of alien code was simultaneously analyzed, decoded, and reprogrammed. On the lead Vornak mothership, navigation systems began to flicker. Star charts twisted and warped. Coordinate systems collapsed into mathematical nonsense. Pilot interfaces started displaying bizarre human memes, quantum physics equations, and random snippets of Earth's internet culture. "What is happening?" Commander Zark 9 roared, his bioengineered nervous system struggling to process the technological invasion. The Trojan Predator wasn't just disrupting systems, it was fundamentally rewriting them. Communication networks began to cross-pollinate. A message intended for a weapons system would suddenly route through a recreational holographic entertainment channel. Weapon-targeting computers started playing vintage Earth video games. Aisha watched the global display, her team working in perfect synchronization. Each quantum processor was a weapon, each algorithm a precision strike against the most advanced technological system in the known galaxy. "They think technology is a linear progression," Aisha explained to her team. "We understand it as a living, breathing ecosystem of information. Every system can be transformed. Every limitation can be a potential strength." Vornak ships began to turn on each other. Navigation systems sent vessels spinning into impossible trajectories. Communication networks collapsed into absolute chaos. What had seemed like an unstoppable invasion force was being systematically dismantled by pure computational creativity. The quantum algorithm didn't just break their systems, it reimagined them. It introduced concepts of randomness, of playful complexity that the rigid Vornak technological mindset could not comprehend. Within hours, the Vornak invasion fleet was in complete disarray. Their most advanced technological systems had been transformed into a massive, galaxy-wide performance art piece of computational destruction. "We're not just defending," Aisha said, a rare smile crossing her face. "We're showing them that technology is an expression of imagination." Quantum processors continued their work, turning the most sophisticated technological invasion in galactic history into a cascading system of beautiful, terrible chaos. The Vornak had come with the most advanced technological systems ever conceived. Humanity had turned their own technology into a weapon of mass confusion. And they were just getting started. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood in the sterilized laboratory, a captured Vornak warrior suspended in a quantum-locked containment unit. The massive bioengineered creature looked like a nightmare made flesh. Layers of reinforced muscle, redundant organ systems, and genetic modifications that made it the perfect killing machine. To Marcus, it was nothing more than an interesting puzzle waiting to be solved. "Genetic perfection is an illusion," he muttered, running advanced molecular scanners over the specimen. His team of xenogeneticists worked in perfect synchronization, each movement precise, each scan revealing another layer of the alien's complex biological architecture. The Vornak had spent millennia perfecting their bioengineering techniques. Warriors were grown, not born. Each was a masterpiece of genetic manipulation, designed to be the ultimate predator. Redundant circulatory systems, neural networks that could process information faster than most computer systems, muscle densities that could crush titanium. Marcus saw something different. He saw vulnerabilities. Every genetic modification is also a potential weakness, he explained to his lead researcher, Dr. Elena Kimura. The more complex the system, the more points of potential failure. The scanning systems began to map the Vornak warriors' genetic structure. What the aliens considered their greatest strength, their ability to genetically engineer perfect warriors, was about to become their most fatal flaw. Marcus discovered something remarkable. The genetic modifications that gave the Vornak warriors their incredible strength were built on a surprisingly narrow genetic foundation. Their bioengineers had created a system so optimized for combat that it had eliminated natural genetic diversity. Monoculture, Elena said, understanding immediately. They've engineered themselves into a corner. A viral agent was developed. But this wasn't a traditional biological weapon. It was a precision-targeted genetic disruption mechanism that would exploit the very modifications that made the Vornak warriors powerful. The virus would target the specific genetic sequences responsible for their enhanced strength, turning their muscular reinforcements into a vector of self-destruction. As the modified muscles try to activate, they would instead begin to break down at the cellular level. "We're not destroying them," Marcus explained. "We're using their own genetic engineering against them." Test simulations showed devastating results. Warriors with enhanced strength would find their muscles literally liquefying from within. Redundant organ systems would become points of cascading genetic failure. Their perfect bioengineering would become their ultimate weakness. The first deployment came during a massive ground assault. Vornak warriors charged towards a human defensive position, their massive forms rippling with engineered muscle. Then, suddenly, they began to fail. Muscles that could crush armored vehicles began to dissolve. Neural pathways that processed information at superhuman speeds became tangled and non-functional. The perfect warriors became nothing more than rapidly deteriorating biological masses. "Genetic diversity is strength," Marcus said, watching the results. "Absolute optimization is a form of evolutionary suicide." The Vornak leadership watched in horror as their most advanced warriors became their greatest liability. Each genetic modification became a potential point of total systemic collapse. Humanity didn't just fight the invasion. They solved it like a complex biological equation. The warriors who had come to conquer found themselves victims of their own genetic hubris. Every enhancement became a potential method of destruction. The more perfect they tried to become, the more vulnerable they were. As the first wave of genetically dismantled warriors fell, the Vornak began to understand a fundamental truth about life and about humanity. Survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the most adaptable. And in that moment, no species in the galaxy was more adaptable than humanity. Captain Sarah Kim crouched in the shadows of a transformed urban landscape, her adaptive camouflage rendering her almost invisible against the backdrop of a city that had become a living weapon. The Vornak invasion force moved through what they believed was a conquered cityscape, unaware that every step was being calculated, every movement anticipated. "Team Delta, sound off," she whispered into her quantum-encrypted communication system. The city was no longer just a collection of buildings. It was a hunting ground meticulously prepared by humanity's most innovative military strategists. Urban infrastructure had been transformed into a complex ecological trap. Sewage systems became chemical weapon delivery networks. Building materials were modified to absorb and redirect energy signatures. Street layouts had been subtly redesigned to create natural choke points and kill zones. Sarah's special operations team wasn't just defending. They were hunting. The first Vornak patrol moved cautiously through what appeared to be an abandoned commercial district. Their bio-enhanced senses scanned for threats, advanced sensory equipment probing the environment. They saw nothing, which was precisely the problem. Microdrones no larger than insects began to activate, not weapons, but information gatherers. They moved through the environment, collecting data, creating a real-time map of every Vornak movement. Each drone was a sensor, a communication node, a potential weapon. "Target acquisition," Sarah murmured. The city itself seemed to breathe. Adaptive materials in building walls began to shift, creating subtle pressure differentials that would disrupt Vornak's sensory capabilities. Concrete became a dynamic material that could absorb and redirect energy signatures. Windows transformed into complex light-bending surfaces that could create impossible optical illusions. The Vornak patrol moved deeper into the urban landscape. What they didn't realize was that they were being herded, guided by invisible pressures, subtle environmental manipulations that made their chosen path seem like their own decision. Suddenly, The ground beneath them began to change. Nano-engineered materials in the street surface activated, creating localized gravitational anomalies. Warriors found their movements becoming increasingly difficult, their bio-enhanced muscles fighting against microscopic environmental modifications. They think they're predators, Sarah told her second-in-command, Lieutenant Marcus Chen. We're going to show them what real predation looks like. The first kill came not from a weapon, but from the environment itself. A Vornak warrior stepped onto a section of street that had been specifically engineered to trigger a cascading molecular breakdown. His enhanced muscular system began to work against him, the street itself becoming a slow, inexorable trap. Other warriors tried to assist, only to find themselves drawn into similar environmental kill zones. Each rescue attempt was another opportunity for the human hunting strategy to work its precise, calculated magic. Adaptive camouflage systems allowed Sarah's team to move like ghosts. They weren't just soldiers. They were living extensions of the urban ecosystem. Each team member could become part of the environment, their tactical gear allowing them to blend, to become invisible, to become the hunt itself. Remember, Sarah had trained her team. We're not fighting an invasion. We're solving an ecological problem. The Vornak began to realize they weren't fighting a military. They were trapped in a living, breathing ecosystem that was actively hunting them. Every street was a potential trap. Every building was a potential weapon. The very concept of urban warfare was being redefined. Quantum communication networks allowed Sarah's team to coordinate with an almost telepathic precision. Information flowed between team members, between the adaptive city infrastructure, creating a living, breathing defensive system that was more organism than machine. As the first Vornak units began to fall, not to traditional weapons but to the city itself, Sarah allowed herself a moment of grim satisfaction. "Welcome to Terra," she whispered, "where the planet hunts back." The invasion was no longer about conquest. It had become a hunt, and humanity was the apex predator. The Vornak High Command convened in their central war chamber, a massive holographic space that spanned multiple dimensional planes. What had begun as a routine invasion was rapidly becoming an incomprehensible nightmare. Supreme Executor Zarlin stared at the tactical displays, his multiple sensory appendages trembling with a sensation the Vornak had never experienced before. Genuine fear. "Explain," he demanded of his chief intelligence officer. The displays showed complete chaos. Invasion forces that had been designed to conquer entire star systems were being systematically dismantled not through conventional warfare, but through something far more terrifying: total environmental and psychological manipulation. Vornak warriors weren't just dying. They were being fundamentally broken. Psychological profiles intercepted from human communications revealed something that shattered everything the Vornak understood about conflict. Humans didn't view warfare as a linear process of attack and defense. They saw it as a complex, adaptive problem-solving exercise. Each human communication was a weapon. Each tactical report was a psychological assault. Intercepted military briefings showed humans discussing the invasion like scientists studying a complex biological system. They weren't afraid. They were fascinated. Every Vornak tactical move was being analyzed, predicted, and countered before it could even be fully implemented. The human ability to transform fear into curiosity was something the Vornak could not comprehend. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's psychological warfare reports were particularly devastating. She had developed a comprehensive framework that treated the entire invasion as a complex adaptive system. Each Vornak tactical move was not just countered. It was studied, understood, and transformed into a learning opportunity. "They are treating our invasion like a research project," one intelligence officer said, his voice breaking. The Vornak had conquered hundreds of species. They had developed psychological warfare techniques that had broken entire civilizations. Humanity was doing something entirely different. They were turning the entire concept of psychological warfare into an art form. Captured human soldiers didn't break under interrogation. They transformed interrogation into an opportunity for psychological manipulation. Every interaction became a complex game of intellectual and emotional chess. The human capacity for narrative was their most potent weapon. Zarlan watched as another tactical display showed a Vornak battle group being systematically dismantled, not through firepower, but through a combination of environmental manipulation, technological disruption, and pure psychological complexity. Humans didn't just fight. They reimagined the entire concept of conflict. Intercepted communication showed human military leaders discussing the invasion with a mixture of scientific curiosity and dark humor. They weren't just defending. They were solving a complex, multidimensional problem. "We are not dealing with a species," one human tactical report read. "We are dealing with a living, adaptive problem-solving system." The Vornak High Command began to fracture. Their perfect, hierarchical command structure, which had conquered hundreds of species, was being dismantled by an approach to conflict that was simultaneously more complex and more simple than anything they had ever encountered. Humanity wasn't just fighting an invasion. They were revealing the fundamental limitations of the Vornak's entire philosophical and tactical understanding of warfare. As another tactical display collapsed into chaos, Supreme Executor Zarlan understood a terrifying truth. They were no longer the hunters. They had become the hunted. Dr. Kira Nakamura stood before the Vornak leadership, the same scientist who had first broadcast humanity's viral transmission that had started this entire conflict. Now she was about to end it. The remnants of the Vornak invasion force sat in a massive containment facility, a testament to humanity's capacity for both destruction and compassion. They had been comprehensively defeated, their technological and biological superiority completely dismantled. But this wasn't going to be an execution. This was going to be an opportunity. "You came to conquer," Kira began, her voice calm and clinical. "Instead, you've been given a chance to understand." The translation matrices hummed, converting her words into the complex linguistic structure of the Vornak language. Every nuance, every subtle meaning was precisely captured. Behind her, a massive holographic display began to show something unprecedented. Not humanity's military might, not their technological superiority, but their scientific and cultural achievements. Discoveries that had saved millions. Medical breakthroughs, ecological restoration projects, cultural innovations. Conquest is an outdated model of interaction, Kira explained. Collaboration is the true evolutionary advantage. The Vornak leadership watched, their multiple sensory appendages processing information in ways that were simultaneously biological and computational. They had come expecting to find a species to subjugate. Instead, they found a civilization that defied every preconceived notion of conflict and survival. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the geneticist who had developed the targeted viral countermeasure, stepped forward. But instead of discussing how he had dismantled their bioengineered warriors, he began explaining how human genetic research could help solve fundamental biological challenges the Vornak had struggled with for generations. "Your genetic engineering is impressive," he said, "but it lacks diversity. We can help you understand how to build resilience through variation, not just optimization." Major Elena Rodriguez, who had transformed entire planetary ecosystems into defensive mechanisms, presented a comprehensive ecological restoration plan. Not as a threat, but as a collaborative opportunity. The humans weren't just offering survival. They were offering a fundamental reimagining of what survival could mean. Zarlan, the former Supreme Executor who had led the invasion, found himself processing an emotion entirely foreign to the Vornak: humility. Their most advanced warriors, their most sophisticated technologies, had been systematically dismantled not through superior force, but through a combination of scientific curiosity, adaptive thinking, and a fundamental understanding of complex systems. "We do not seek revenge," Kira said. "We seek understanding." The offer was simple. Join a galactic collaborative network. Share knowledge. Learn from each other. Transform the very concept of interspecies interaction from conquest to cooperation. Some Vornak would resist. Some would refuse. But many would see the opportunity for what it was, a chance to evolve beyond their current limitations. Captain Sarah Kim, who had turned entire cities into hunting grounds, now demonstrated how those same adaptive technologies could be used for ecological restoration, medical breakthroughs, and species rehabilitation. Dr. Aisha Mbik showed how the quantum computational techniques that had disrupted Vornak systems could be used to solve complex scientific challenges that had stumped multiple galactic civilizations. The message was clear. Humanity's greatest strength was not its ability to destroy, but its capacity to understand, to adapt, to transform. As the first collaborative discussions began, the Vornak began to understand a fundamental truth about the species they had attempted to conquer. Humans weren't just survivors. They were problem solvers. And the greatest problem they could solve was the nature of conflict itself. The invasion was over. The real work was just beginning.